Though the second Dark Lord Sauron was an enemy of all the free peoples, his greatest hatred was reserved for the men of Numenor, humans blessed by the creator Eru with long lives, greater skills, and increased wisdom. Descendants of the Edain who fought against his master Melkor in the First Age, Numenorians went on to be the greatest foes of the Dark Lord during his creation of the One Ring of Power and attempts to conquer Middle-earth in the Second Age, defeating his armies in the War of the Elves and Sauron before forcing his submission in 3262 SA. Taken as a captive to Numenor, the Dark Lord worked in the shadows to secure his vengeance and eventually succeeded by convincing their king, Ar-Pharazôn, to attack the Undying Lands of Aman, leading to the destruction of their island home. Yet his victory was incomplete, as Elendil, successor to the lords of Andúnie and leader of those who remained faithful to Eru, opposed his ascendancy on Numenor and escaped the destruction by sailing east to found the realms of Gondor and Arnor in Middle-earth. Seeking to finish off his hated enemies, Sauron's spirit returned to Mordor, where he gathered his legions, summoning orcs, trolls, easterlings, Haradrim, eastern dwarves, and wicked beasts to launch a first strike against Gondor in 3429 SA, engaging in the Battle of Minas Ithil. Burning the White Tree and slaughtering the forces of men who thought Sauron died on Numenor and so were not expecting an attack, Isildur, son of Elendil, fled with his family, taking with them a seedling of the White Tree, which served as an important symbol of their house and people. Seeking refuge with his father in Arnor, Isildur's younger brother Anarion remained to hold the line against the Dark Lord in the Battle of Osgiliath, where he awaited reinforcements from the north. Raising the armies of Arnor, High King Elendil reached out to his elven friends, High King Gil-galad and Lord Círdan of the Kingdom of Lindon, who brought forth a great army to form the last alliance of elves and men. Marching to Rivendell, they spent 3 years forging weapons and armor while making plans for war, before finally departing for the south, alongside Lord Elrond and his army. As they traveled, they were further strengthened by the forces of King Oropher and his son Thranduil, who led the Sylvan Elves of the Woodland Realm, King Amdir and the Galadrim of Lothlorien, the dwarves of Durin's folk from Khazad-dûm, and various blessed beasts ready to fight against the Dark Lord. Anticipating the arrival of the Alliance, Sauron sent his armies to burn the Gardens of the Entwives, located north of Mordor, in order to deprive his enemies of supplies and slow their advance, creating what was later known as the Brownlands. Yet this was not enough to stop the Alliance, which grew even larger when joined by Anarion and the armies of Gondor, to at last engage the Dark Lord in the Battle of Dagorlad. A long and vicious conflict, Sauron gained the upper hand when his enemies made a strategic error, as the kings Oropher and Amdir were independent-minded and did not wish to accept the authority of High King Gil-galad, leading them to charge forth before the signal was given to engage the armies of Mordor. Though the Sylvan Elves of the Greenwood and Lothlorien were courageous warriors, they were far less armed and armored than others in the Alliance, and so without the support of their comrades, were soon surrounded and massacred. After King Oropher and 2/3 of his forces were lost, King Amdir was pushed into nearby marshlands where he was slain alongside half of his army, leaving so many bodies. This region was later known as the Dead Marshes. Despite Sauron's forces vastly outnumbering the Alliance and gaining an advantage by slaughtering the Sylvan, they ultimately could not stand against the rest of their enemies, losing the battle and retreating into Mordor. Yet the Alliance, not content with this victory, followed them past the Black Gate towards the impenetrable Tower of Barad-dûr, where Sauron hid with a sizable host. Laying siege for 7 years, casualties continued to mount as the Dark Lord sent his forces to attack and harass the enemy wherever possible, resulting in the death of Anarion from a projectile weapon. In the end, when at last his armies were exhausted, Sauron emerged from Barad-dûr to face off against Elendil and Gil-galad, engaging in a fearsome fight where the High Kings succeeded in slaying the Dark Lord, though at a cost of their own lives. The war over, Isildur picked up a shard of Narsil, his father's shattered sword, and cut the One Ring of Power from Sauron's hand. Yet rather than taking this opportunity to destroy it in the fires of Mount Doom, as urged by Elrond and Círdan, Isildur was corrupted by its power and took the One Ring as his rightful weregild for the death of his father and brother. Entering into the Third Age, the last alliance of men and elves won a great though temporary victory, but suffered many casualties throughout the conflict, which in addition to the warriors lost, included the deaths of King Oropher, King Amdir, Prince Anarion, High King Gil-galad, and High King Elendil. Taking up their responsibilities, Orofer's son Thranduil was the new king of the Woodland Realm. Galadriel and Celeborn ruled over Lothlorien, while Elendil's son Isildur became High King of Gondor and Arnor. When it came to Gil-galad, no other would take his title, making him the last High King of the Elves in Middle-earth, with Lord Elrond gaining sovereignty over Rivendell, while Lord Círdan ruled in the Grey Havens. Though Sauron was gone, his spirit remained bound to the One Ring of Power, and so survived the war, slowly regaining his strength to one day re-emerge and cover the land in a second darkness. As for High King Isildur, he was killed just 2 years later in the disaster of the Gladden Fields, shot by arrows while trying to escape from an orc attack through the Anduin River. With the orcs unaware of its presence, the One Ring of Power slipped off Isildur's finger and fell to the bottom of the river, where it remained for over 2,000 years. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Barachado, Delacruz the Freed, Average Soul the Healer, and Kyle Blitzsword. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and check out the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.